This is Andi Purewal for ID Boxing. I'm joined by promoter Ben Shalom here in Manchester. Ben, always a pleasure. How's life treating you?
Very well, obviously. Do a lot of shows in Manchester, so easy, and good to be at the gym yesterday in Salford. And it's nice, and a lot of guys that I've known for a long time on the card as well. Particularly excited for Mikey Gomez Jnr. It's just crazy to see him up here. I've known him he was literally the first fighter that I think I was working with. I remember driving him around to weigh-ins on small horse shows and things like that, and he was crazy, and he never was taking it seriously enough. Obviously, his dad's been through a lot of struggles. And he's had to grow up in a tough environment. So to actually see his head screwed on and to know how active he is now, and he used to bounce around trainers. He'd been with one every 2 months, and people would just say, you can't touch Mikey Gomez Jr. He's a nightmare. And so he's proving people wrong, and it's good to see. And yeah, big fight for him, English title on Sky Sports at the arena that his dad used to box at all the time on Sky. I'm looking forward to it. And there's other familiar faces on the card. Lawrence Okolie wasn't meant to box in Manchester. He was meant to box on Taylor Catterall in the card. Then it was Royal Albert Hall last week, but Sky we don't want a clash where we can avoid it. UFC were in town, and only in town once every year. So here we are, and it just gives an opportunity to fighters that otherwise might not get it. So very exciting.
Ben, would you say it'd be safe to say that Manchester's somewhat the staple of the boxer shows? You've obviously had some big nights here. Carnbrook, Eubank Jr. Smith, amongst others as well. Do you think this is where you see yourself kind of planting your own mark within the sport?
I think so. I think the other promoters have always been from London, and you talk to trainers up there, and they feel like they have to go down south to get opportunities, and that was always something we looked at. There's not too many stars coming through in Manchester, if I'm honest, at the moment. There are a few. I think Clark Smith, Mikey Gomez Jr., Caris Artingstall. Jack Catterall, obviously, is a star from Manchester, but there's not the Crawlers and the Hattons yet that used to fill out the arenas all the time. So that's what we'd like to do. But yeah, I definitely think in the Northwest we want that to be home, because I think the other promoters are very, very focused on London, and sometimes it doesn't get a look in. So people say about doing less shows and focusing on less shows and making them bigger. No, how does that give any opportunities to fighters? There's so many talented fighters that need opportunities. The more shows we can do, the better, because for us, it's not about regurgitating the same names. We can easily, if we were running this just as what profits can we make and bleeding it, we'd be putting on YouTubers every week, and we'd be putting on names that we all know and recycling them. I don't need to know names, but we all know them. We're really, really dedicated to trying to build new stars, and in Manchester and Northwest, we'd like to make sure there's plenty of opportunity.
Ben, I obviously have a number of topics to catch up with you on. It's been a while since I last saw you, so let's just touch on that main event. Lawrence Okolie, David Light. What goes down? What are you hoping to see from your new cruiserweight?
12 months out the ring, different trainer, different promoter, different manager, a lot of pressure, a lot of talk, a lot of crap being thrown at him. It's under a lot of pressure on Saturday night against a guy that we didn't choose to fight. He's earned his right to be here. He's a mandatory challenger. He's fought away against Brandon Glanton on Glanton's promoter's show. Gone out there, won controversially, but won away from home. And you look at his amateur pedigree, and you look at how tough he is, and you look at his previous fights, he's coming to win. You speak to Matt Rose, you speak to Joseph Parker, who's done plenty of rounds with David Light. This is a real tough guy, real tough fight, and has waited his turn, and believes that Saturday night is his time, and they're 100% confident. So this is a dangerous fight for Lawrence Okolie. I believe he's the best cruiserweight in the world. I believe he will unify. And he's got that huge fight with Richard Riakporhe on the line, where Richard was the one that's wanted us to get Lawrence Okolie, because he knows how big that fight is. And he's got to come through on Saturday night. I hope he's going to put in a huge statement and a huge performance. But yeah, I don't want him to change too much, because he's at world level now. And yes, a new trainer, and yes, it's Sugar Hill. But let's see. I think he looks very confident, and he's very happy. And that always is a good sign.
Is the Richard Riakporhe fight most likely next for Lawrence, provided Saturday goes to plan?
Unification or Richard Riakporhe, it's one of the two. It's 100% next, and that's good with Lawrence. And when you have fighters that just want the big nights and want the big, that's why we signed him. We can make the big fights for him. We can make the unification, so we can make the huge possibly the biggest fight in cruiserweight boxing globally, I believe, in terms of attention, would be the Richard Lawrence fight. He's got the big fights here. He's got to come through on Saturday night, and then it will be one of the two.
Ben, I saw something the other day. There was some links over social media suggesting that if you was to click through it and you go to a website, you'd get free tickets to the show on Saturday night. Can you just kind of clean up as to what the play was with that?
No, that was a competition winner, so they get a link, and that's all it was. I think competition winners win. I think, if honest, the way Lawrence has sold, and I've seen a lot of things, and you're going to see it on Saturday night, it's incredible. We're going to have 6,000 in there, and we're going to have more than we had on the Ricky Hatton Tasha Jonas night and Dalton Smith and everything like that. Much bigger numbers than when Conor Ben fought here last year. You know, people are interested in Lawrence Okolie, no matter what people may say, and he's fighting in Manchester, which he has no connection to. It's always going to be tough for us. He's on Sky Showcase, he's on Sky Sports Main Event. We need as many eyeballs on him as possible. We're expecting big numbers. Yeah, I'm excited because it's good to be back home, and it's good to have so many fights, and I think there's some brilliant fights on there. I think Mikey Gomez Jr., his fight against Levi Giles is a 50-50 English title, which always deliver. Carrie Sartingstall's in a big fight in a third fight against a girl that was begging for this fight, 4-1, also from Manchester. Callum Simpson for me, facing Celso Neves, and you look at Callum Simpson, and we got a ready-made superstar there, huge following. Barnsley FC completely behind him, sold a huge amount of tickets. We talk about other stars in that Yorkshire area. This is the man. This is the guy that I think that's going to shock the super middleweight division. 8 knockouts out of 10. First fight on Sky. Going to put in a huge statement against a guy that took Felix Castro rounds and made him look a very good fighter, look fairly ordinary in December. For me, we're going to witness. People talk about the high-profile Buatsi, Okolie's, Ben Whittaker's, Caroline Dubois, those signings. I promise you, Callum Simpson is, for us, we're so excited about him, and to see him debut in this fashion, and then he wants the big fights ready-made, as I say. Fraser Clark as well, in a step up, wanting to put on a statement. Brian Phillips in a big fight against Rhys Edwards, who was the standout amateur in the whole of the UK as a 22-year-old. So there's some good fights on the card, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a special atmosphere, and to see Sugar Hill and Lawrence Okolie, it's interesting. How are they going to mix? I don't know. And there he is, Sugar here. What's he? Yeah, so Lawrence has been in with Sugar in Miami, and it's going to be exciting to see how it unfolds. I think people are intrigued. You've got the haters, you've got the people that like him, you've got the people that are questioning his decisions. They're all going to watch on Saturday night.
Ben, it's certainly safe to say that Sugar Hill's an admirer of yours there. Just wanted to get your thoughts on kind of the recent announcement of your schedule. CBS, you've delivered him that fight at the Bournemouth football ground, May 27th. But who will be in the opposite corner?
It will be a press conference on Monday, and it's massive, and I'm looking forward to it. And to have CBS, Riakpo and Lawrence all ready to go at the peak of their careers, top 3 cruiserweights in the country at world level. Special, and Bournemouth's going to be amazing, because we were there last summer and we couldn't believe the interest, we couldn't believe the way the town got it. It was the first ever televised boxing event in Bournemouth, and now to be here with the stadium, the stadium have been fantastic. Thank you to Joe, who knows who he is, and without him we'd have never got into Bournemouth, and he's made everything possible with the council, and it's going to be a special night on the May Bank holiday for Chris Billam-Smith in a career-defining fight. The actual schedule will be announced next week. We had to get a few things out, but this week's about Lawrence Okolie.
It's about Lawrence Okolie, but you're returning to my hometown of Birmingham on June 6th. Buatsi Stepien, talk to me about that one.
For me, Midlands boxing has always struggled, and the arenas have always struggled to sell, and it is a frustrating thing, because there's a lot of activity. But now, with the stars coming through from that area, there's plenty in the amateur setup about to turn over, but you've also got Ben Whittaker and Fraser Clark, Tyler Denny, who's come from nowhere as well. That's going to be rocking. And for Buatsi to headline there, it's because the future we see it in Midlands boxing. We want to start now, and we think Ben Whittaker and Fraser Clark will be selling out that arena in years to come, and it starts on May the 6th, and that will be a hell of a card. A big fight for Tyler Denny coming. Ben Whittaker return, which feels like such a big new signing for us after a frustrating time, after that incredible debut in Bournemouth. The injury has hampered things, and now he's back, and now he's ready to go. So Midlands boxing, if it ever can be done, it's now. and we're going to give it a good shot.
I was due to correct myself, May 6th, not June the 6th, Ben. Just with Buatsi Stepien, how did you land on Stepien? Because when he was due to face Callum Smith, I'm glad you caught that because that's been flying around us for about 20 minutes. But there were some criticisms when Callum Smith was going to fight him. So why do you feel like it's a right opponent for Joshua Buatsi?
Because we promised we'd get him out in 5 weeks, because we need him active for his big fights. And when you've got a guy that's been hell for leather for 7-8 weeks preparing for Callum Smith, no other, we know we've got a live opponent, we've got an unbeaten opponent, we've got a guy that was good enough for Callum to headline with, and we're turning this round in 5 weeks. For me, it's a proper fight, and it's straight away, and that was the key. It wasn't let's wait for 3 months for the best opponent. We want him to get this fight on so that he can get into the big fights immediately, and it's going to be interesting to see. Again, a lot of pressure on him, similar to Lawrence, and there'll be a lot of interest into how he performs. And yes, Stepien for me, Stepien is a test. He's a tough test. He's someone Buatsi should deal with and deal with in style. It's on Sky Showcase. It's going to be a lot of noise on Sky. Big audience at Birmingham, obviously with the undercard that we just mentioned. For me, it's the perfect solution. As I say, 5-week turnaround. Luckily for us, Stepien is ready and frustrated and raring to go because of what happened with Callum Smith. It made perfect sense. The UK fans now know him from that promotion, and yeah, I think it's. I'm looking forward to getting going so quickly.
Ben, just working obviously with Joshua Buatsi now and obviously Lawrence Okolie, two men who have had somewhat of a fallout with Eddie Hearn in recent interviews and what have you. I just want to get your thoughts on everything on that from what you've made. I've seen two of your fighters fall out with a rival promoter.
It's not nice because I struggle to criticise fighters because I've never been in their shoes. I've never had to go and fight for a living to put food on the table and to do what I need to do. I think it's a brutal sport. I think every fight should be respected. And so it's unfortunate because it is what it is, but ultimately when a fighter's out of contract, they're going to speak to other promoters and make the best decision for themselves. And we've had it done to us. We've had fighters leave. Obviously we're new, and it is what it is, but we can't. I think it's a lot of noise, a lot of nonsense, a lot of rubbish. They knew what they were going to get because it happens every time, whether it's Savannah Marshall, Tasha Jonas, Florian Marku. Anyone that leaves that situation is heavily criticised. You know, they've got a powerful platform, they've been here a long time, and they don't mind giving it to fighters and criticising them if they move on. And so they expected it, and I'm sure they're going to receive it, but in 12 months' time, just as Tasha Jonas showed, because she had absolute horrendous abuse for leaving at the time, and in 12 months' time, she's won Fighter of the Year. So you have to have a thick skin in moments like this. Billam-Smith as well, you have to have a thick skin. You're going to get criticised. You're going to be told you're a terrible fighter. You shouldn't be fighting this. You're greedy. You got the wrong people around. You're going to be told that, and in spades with large people and platforms going at you that have been promoted by huge platforms for the past 10 years, and they were prepared for it. But in 12 months' time, it will all be forgotten, and they'll have achieved their dreams. And yeah, I'm proud of them for being able to put up with it because it's not easy. For me, as I said, we've never been in their shoes. A fighter does something that not many people would do for a living in a dangerous game, and they want to feel in a good in a good position. And you know, in the last 5-10 years, there wasn't, and it was almost a monopoly. There wasn't competition. This is good. Either way, I've got nothing against Matchroom or Dazn or BT or Frank Warren. We're all competing in a healthy way, I feel, and we should be able to make fights together, I feel. And so we can't fall out. The fighters are the ones that matter, and they're the ones getting opportunities. And the more, yes, we talk about promoters and too many shows and too much this and it's too fragmented. Well, who's that benefiting? It's benefiting the fighters. They got choice, and they never had choice in the past. And so obviously you're going to have people making decisions when there's decisions to be made.
Dazn are now going to have their own Sky channel, Ben. What do you make of that? I know you've had a pretty healthy relationship with them recently, but now they're coming over onto the Sky platform.
Well, they could have done it in the first month. I think anyone can get a Sky platform. Box Nation are still on Sky, but it's not Sky. It's just a channel separate to Sky. Obviously, we're on Sky Sports, and for me, it's. Again, I like Dazn. They're spending so much money in the sport. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And they continue to go, even when you think when will it end, because it's great for the sport, but they continue to go. They've been loyal servants to boxing. Not going to criticise them, but obviously I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and sometimes it was like, well, Sky Sports boxing was dead, and that's what we had to put up with 12 months ago. Sky Sports is dead, the platform's gone, streaming's the future, no pay-per-views, that's it, you're all finished. And now the biggest promotional thing is saying, oh, well, we're on the Sky platform. Frank Warren doesn't say he's on Sky. BT, it's just different. It's different channels, different subscriptions, and as I say, there's plenty of other channels on the Sky platform that are nothing to do with Sky. But again, I don't care as long as people are investing in boxing. Fighters are getting opportunities. I genuinely mean that. Then that's a good thing. But I don't think people quite understand. I don't think people quite understand it.
Ben saw Liam Smith earlier. I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago. He said that there was kind of a deadline in place for when a Eubank Jr. rematch should be announced, or something more official, concrete should be in place. He hasn't had that yet. There's been a lot of reports that Eubank Jr. might be holding out for the Conor Ben fight. Speaking to Liam again, he was quite unhappy with how things currently lie. Can you update us as to where things stand? Yeah,
the difficulty we've got is we didn't ask for the rematch. It was part of our contract when we got the Eubank fight with Wasserman. I don't have a contractual relationship with Chris Eubank Jr. I have a contract with Wasserman, who activated the rematch clause, and we have to. It was our contractual duty to make sure Liam Smith's available to fight the rematch. And so, for me, that's all I can say. I think you have to speak to Wasserman and Chris, because there's been talk on that side. But all we know is, as I say, our contract's with Wasserman, not Eubank Jr. And we seen the news in the last couple of days, and we were having to stop Liam taking fights because of the rematch clause. But again, that wasn't our doing. We felt we have to do it because that was how we got the fight in the first place. And but yeah, I think it's a question for Wasserman. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Is there an expiration date on that deal with Wasserman then? So then you know when you can tell Liam, like, listen, if it isn't secured by this time, you can then look towards the other fights for Carl Brooks, for Golovkin's, for Janibek fight.
I think we have to provide the fight within 5 months of the original date. I think so, but I can't say it's confidential information. There is a certain limit, but I don't think it affects anything. But yeah, we'll see. Nothing surprising me in boxing. Things change all the time. But yeah, as I say, we were the ones that were told we had to do a rematch. It wasn't the other way around.
And obviously, Ben, one of the biggest talking points in the last day or two, Fury-Usyk does not seem to be taking place. A lot of gutted boxing fans, I'm sure you're one of those as well. Just want to get your thoughts on the fallout around it and where the state of the heavyweight division currently stands.
Yeah, just as a fan, obviously gutted, because you love those nights are what grow the sport, and it's why the fans love it. And you speak to people in the street, they don't know much about boxing, but they know the big fights. And when they don't happen, they just turn off from boxing. That's what's so frustrating. There has to be something looked at. I've said it before. Just like tonight, on Saturday night, would we have chosen David Light from a business reason and taken a risk in his first fight? Probably not, but there's a mandatory in place because it's a sport, and a sport means the best fight the best at the right time. That's what every other sport do, because that's what the nature of sport means. Unfortunately, business, again, is stopping the sport run. And unless that changes, we're going to keep running into this problem. It's only going to get worse. And so the biggest fight in boxing, in the marquee division, not happening is sad. Not blaming anyone, because I don't know what's happened. All I will say as a fan, it's sad, because that's the fights we want to see, and that's the fights that keep the sport moving and growing and people loving it. The fights have to happen. There's so many fights to make. There's so many fights. That's what's so frustrating. I think it's so territorial that people are scared to take fights, but there's another fight around the corner. I think long term, hopefully it's a watershed moment where people start looking at the sport and saying, how can this happen? It can't be allowed to happen.
Ben, obviously I know it's not something you're involved in personally, but just looking as an outsider, looking in like the rest of us, it seems to be that the first fight was agreed, and it's the issue of a rematch clause and the purses and the splits there, with Usyk wanting it more so favourable towards him if he was to beat Tyson. Who do you think's coming out of this looking the worst out of the two of them?
I don't know, and I don't want to comment because they're both amazing champions. Obviously, it looks like Usyk was going to do anything to take the fight. He was bending over backwards from the outside. It looks like that, and so it's such a shame because Tyson has created such a fan base by taking any fight. He fought Wilder 3 times, fought Klitschko in Hamburg a long time ago. So like, that's what we've grown to know with Tyson, and that's what we believe. So for it to not happen, that's devastating. And yeah, I don't know exactly this. You never know what's going on. So I could say, obviously, yeah, clearly Tyson's ducking it or doesn't want to fight, but you actually don't know the reasons why or what's happening between promoters or what. People, I think, like to think they understand the sport, but they don't, and they just see it from the outside. But I will agree with them that it should be very simple, and it's a fight that should be easy to make. And yeah, it doesn't look good, and I do believe Alexander that they have done everything to make the fight.
Is it a surprise to you to learn from Alex Krassyuk when he's come out and said that Alexander was only going to earn 3 to 4 times less than what he did in the Anthony Joshua fight in the rematch out in Saudi?
No, it doesn't. I think it's just a shame that we're talking about money, about a fight that should just happen. I don't even want to talk about money. He's got 3 world titles. Tyson's got 1. They should just be fighting each other. I know Tyson was unified and never lost that, and all the rest of it, but it should be a fairly easy fight to make. And the fact that money is even being talked about generates enough money for anyone. Yeah, massive shame. And yeah, just as a fan, it's annoying. It's actually annoying. It slows us all down. Everyone else is waiting around, and for everyone, if the big fights doesn't happen, the broadcasters lose interest as well, 100%.
Final one, Ben. Jack Catterall, Regis Prograis, speaking to Jack last week, he said that he's confident that it will be taking place in the summer. Can you fill us in?
Yeah, I hope it will. Obviously, he was meant to fight on this card if he was fighting Taylor. Wasn't meant to be. Said enough on that already. He wants the big fights. He doesn't want takeovers. Prograis or Taylor are the 2 names, and yeah, I think he'll get it. And we won't stand in the way. We want him to get what he deserves. He should be, in many eyes, unified world champion, and instead he's been waiting around for a rematch for 12 months, and never got a mandatory or never got ordered, or the sport didn't look after him because he did win that night on that night.
Confident it is Prograis next?
Confident. It looks good. It looks good, but again, until I've known from Taylor Catterall, until they're actually in the ring, anything can happen, and that's why promoters trip up all the time. They say this fight's going to happen. We've seen it a lot with AJ Fury and this and that. It looks good. I think it will happen, but until it's in even a signed contract, until they're in the ring or it's at the press conference, it's hard to know. But I really hope he gets that fight. I think he will.
Ben, I've taken enough of your time. I know there's a couple more people waiting to speak to you, so it's a pleasure as always. Thanks for speaking to me.
Cheers, mate. I appreciate it.